Good evening, all. Good evening, all. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is John Dew. I'm the chair of CB2. I just want to introduce the community board members from districts 2, 6, and 8 who are here with us tonight to help us get through this important informational session. My district manager, Mr. Rob Paris, is on holiday right now, so he was not able to be here tonight. I would like to introduce Mr. Richard Bashner, who is the chair of Community Board 6. I'd like to introduce Mr. Craig Hammerman, who is the district manager for Community Board 6. I'd like to introduce also Ms. Nizani Granville, who is the chair for Community Board 8. And Ms. Michelle George, the district manager for Community Board 8. Is Ms. George here? I don't see her. This meeting tonight is co-sponsored by the 3 community boards because the project sits in all 3 districts. The 3 community boards have been working together since the project was first announced and are committed to representing the individual views of our respective communities. Why are we here? The community boards were asked by the Empire State Development Corporation to host a public informational meeting so that we would have a chance to brief us on the proposed modifications to the Atlantic Yards development project. In advance of their public hearing, which is scheduled for next week. We thought it was a good idea and we were happy to help organize this meeting. We co-sponsored the first public meeting in November 2004 when representatives for Forest City Ratner Company presented their initial plans for the Atlantic Yards project. Since then, the project has completed its review and adoption process, and the general project plan was approved by the state. At this time, the Empire State Development Corporation has an approved plan, but for reasons we will learn about tonight, they would like to modify their approved plan. So I'm going to hand the microphone now over to Ms. Nizani Granville. She'll give some opening comments.
First, I would like to thank our host this evening, Community Board 2 and Long Island University, for providing us with this meeting space. I would like to recognize the elected officials who came out for tonight's meeting. We have with us tonight Mr. John Hayer from the Borough President's Office, Tobias Rousseau from Governor Patterson's office, and Schetzel from Assemblyman Jim Brenner's office, Councilwoman Letitia James, Irene Van Slyke from State Senator Velman at Montgomery's office, and we will acknowledge others as they join us. And now I'd like to ask Richard Bashner, Chair of Community Board 6, to go over the meeting agenda for this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we will hear from representatives of the Empire State Development Corporation as they present the proposed modifications to the Atlantic Yards redevelopment plan. Representatives of Forest City Ratner Company are also on hand and will be called upon as necessary to participate in the meeting. We will be taking questions from the audience, provided they're submitted in writing. If you need a piece of paper to write on, please raise your hand at any time and someone will bring it to you. And please return it as soon as you like. The presentation will be fairly brief, so if you have some questions that you want to start submitting now, that's fine. If you have additional questions that are related to particular points that are presented this evening, please include those as well, even though you won't be able to make those questions up until after you hear the presentation. Just to clarify one of the ground rules here, which is to submit the pieces of paper, the questions in writing. The purpose of this is not to avoid having questions asked, nor is it to avoid having follow-up questions asked. The purpose is to try to collate the questions in a sensible way And if you have follow-ups that are not being addressed, please submit those as well. We have a relatively small crowd compared to some of the prior meetings on this, and I see no reason why we can't get to everyone's questions and follow-up questions in an organized way. The program lays out the ground rules for tonight to help keep the agenda moving along. Please take a moment to read them. Also, as was mentioned earlier, there will be a public hearing on the proposed modifications taking place next week over a 2-day period, July 29 and 30, at which time the public will be heard. The public will not be heard tonight because tonight is an informational meeting, and that's the proper forum for expressing your concerns.
Under the original and proposed modified plan, ESDC will assemble the site through condemnation and by direct acquisition of certain MTA properties and air rights. ESDC would then lease the properties to Forest City affiliates for development. Once constructed, the 16 towers will be conveyed to the developer and placed on the tax rolls. Implementation of the project has been delayed, both as a result of litigation and a more challenging economic climate. To permit the project to be financed and to move forward, ESDC has agreed to certain modifications to the plan. The new general project plan envisions that the project site will be acquired in 2 or more stages. The first stage, which we expect to occur in 2009, would include the arena block, which is the block bounded by Flatbush, Atlantic, 6th, and Dean Street. Block 1129, which is bounded by Pacific Street, Carlton, Vanderbilt, and Dean Street, and lots 42 and 47, which run along Vanderbilt Avenue. The arena block will include the arena and 4 towers. Block 1129 will initially be used for staging and parking for the arena block development and will eventually be developed to include 4 towers.
It is approaching half a decade since Forest City embarked upon the Atlantic Yards project. Today, with hundreds of millions of dollars of equity invested in the project and not a single new building built, our resolve is stronger than ever to build the project we committed to build early on. A brief update as to what we are focused upon doing. The project's master closing is planned for later this year. This is a critical milestone wherein all project documents are executed, the condemnation process commences, arena financing is secured, and construction commences on the site.
The first question is, what happens to the land if the project doesn't get built? Can the developer sell it? And what could a new owner build there?
The part of the question involving the sale of the property, could you address that?
Sure. I mean, the project from ESDC's perspective is not about Forest City. It's about what's being developed on the site. It's about removal of blight. It's about creating jobs. Forest City can bring in partners. They can assign interest in the project to other developers, but regardless, the general project plan remains what it is, which is an arena and 16 towers.
What guarantees are there that the future phase or phase 2 of the project will be built at all?
There's one plan, and that one plan is basically ESDC and Forest City is striving to accomplish the one plan. For Forest City to receive a return on its investment, the only way it can do that is to build out the project plan.
You're like a little kid, you ask me. How do you get grown?
Excuse me, sir, you're taking time away from everyone else. We have their time, we have their attention, let's make the most use of it. A question submitted by an audience member: what is the amount of government subsidies, direct and indirect, for the affordable housing component and for job creation, and how does this compare to other ESDC projects?
I think I could only speak in terms of ESDC and the state on that particular issue. The state obligation, the state commitment to the project, I should say, is $100 million that's going to go to subsidize the infrastructure costs of the project. That's the limit of our financial contribution.
So the city has committed $100 million in capital budget funding, as well as the state's $100 million, and has also made a commitment on certain infrastructure-related scope items in and around the project area. In addition to that, working hand in hand with our partners at Acorn and coordinating with the city on the housing program, it has been an ongoing process. The city will make available its off-the-shelf housing programs. Those are programs that are in effect and available to any developer seeking to build affordable housing. And that is the program that will be used to launch the first residential building.
Traffic in the area of Flatbush 4th and Atlantic Avenues is bad enough now. How will this project improve traffic conditions or, at least, prevent them from getting worse? What happens to people and their possessions if they refuse to leave their homes after the state completes an eminent domain proceeding?
You know, Empire State Development Corporation is, we recognize that in a project where we're exercising eminent domain, it impacts people's lives. We're very sensitive to that. We try to minimize the impact of our projects on folks who are displaced by the project. We have very little experience having to deal with people who refuse to leave. I think we have a good track record of assisting displaced residents and businesses in finding new locations and trying to assist them in dealing with what admittedly is a disruptive process. From a strictly legal perspective, if someone were to refuse to leave, there's a court process that Empire State Development Corporation would go through. It would be supervised by the condemnation judge in Kings County. Once the condemnation was approved and the property was needed for construction, Empire State Development Corporation would ask the judge to issue a writ of assistance. It's comparable to an eviction notice, which we then would deliver to the Kings County Sheriff. There would be a reasonable period of time that would pass. The individual would be given a deadline for leaving. If they refuse to leave, the sheriff would forcibly remove them and their possessions. Their possessions would be stored off-site for a reasonable period of time. We don't anticipate that happening. We're not in the habit of dealing with that situation on our projects.
I have a follow-up question. If the Court of Appeals finds that eminent domain may not be used in this case, then what? Scratching his head.
I think in not answering that question, they've answered that question. Which is they don't have an answer. Which means they don't have an answer. Which means they don't have a plan that does not rely upon eminent domain. That's now, having said that, I do not want to open the door to crosstalk.
Except like everybody else has.
Okay. This isn't a circus, folks, so let's try and keep this civilized and get as much information as we can while we have their attention. Please answer the question to the best of your ability. Excuse me, sir, we will have you removed if you don't allow the meeting to proceed. Help me out here because I heard you talk about the job years and I don't understand what that means. If you can break it down into layman's terms, into something that we can understand, I think it would be a lot more informative to the body as a whole.
Sure. A job year is a full-time construction job for 1 year. So obviously this project is going to take more than 1 year, so the 12,500 is an accumulation of job years. So if one worker is working consecutively on the project for 2 years, that counts as 2 job years.
Okay, so you said 12,500 job years. roughly?
Directly, yes. direct
Okay,
job.
so it could be about 1,250 jobs for 10 years if the same person held that job for 10 years.
It's an unlikely scenario, but yes.
Okay. I needed to understand that concept.
We've talked with Forest City about their financial wherewithal. I think what MaryAnne is about to enlighten us on is some of what she's told us. The answer is we're confident with where they are, but I'll also let MaryAnne talk about the president's statement.
Okay, that was ESDC's answer.
Right,
Now
so-
we'll hear Forest City's answer.
And they can supplement my statement, but Forest City's been around for 90 years, and we expect to be around for another 90 years. And there are important facts that I think demonstrate how we're weathering the current environment. And the comment about our stock is, I think, a comment that applies to a lot of companies. But if you have watched the analyst reports and paid attention to the way our company is tracked, you know that we, in May of 2009, closed on an equity raise of $345 million by issuing 52.3 million Class A common shares. Those shares were oversubscribed, meaning that there was more demand than the shares we were willing to make available. We have slowed development. Any new development activity in the rest of our portfolio has slowed down with the exception of Atlantic Yards and one other project. In 2009, we anticipate only breaking ground on 2 projects nationwide.
How is it that at this important informational meeting, there is information regarding changes in public benefits and renderings that won't be available until after next week's public hearing?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, can you rephrase what's the...
Yeah, I think the essence of the question here is why are the renderings and other information regarding the project not being made available before next week's public hearing?
well, I think as MaryAnne mentioned before, the design of the arena is evolving.
The way we look at the project is that the current plan is not to build on Block 1128 or Site 5. These are the 2 parcels that are part of the second phase taking. There are no plans currently to develop those parcels in their current zoned state. So I think our focus will be focused around the arena and the development in and around the arena itself. And then Block 1129 is where the parking, 1,100 spaces, are intended to be for the arena itself and for the public use. And so the intention is still to satisfy the parking for the arena on Block 1129. And as we build eastward on the site, that parking will go below grade permanently and buildings will be built above it.
In addition to the 1,100 spaces on 1129, it's also going to be used for construction worker parking, which was one of the key mitigation measures in the EIS, so that there's not a parking impact in the neighborhood.
How does allowing Forest City Ratner to build a rail yard with a 56-car capacity as a replacement for a yard with a 72-car capacity constitute an upgrade?
I mean, we're not here to speak for the MTA, but the MTA has looked long and hard at this transaction, and they have determined that the upgraded yard is in fact an upgraded yard that's going to serve their purposes going forward. They are very keenly aware of operational issues with respect to the yard, and they have been very focused on that.
What rate of return, IRR, I guess that is some economic term that I'm unfamiliar with, does Forest City Ratner expect on the residential properties in Phase 1?
I'm not going to go into details on Forest City's return. I can only say that it's a transparent process where the government has looked at our models, has...
You're not going to go into details on a transparent process.
I'm not going to go into...
Has Forest City Ratner asked the city and/or state for additional subsidies, including extraordinary infrastructure costs? If so, how much? And to Forest City Ratner, do you anticipate asking for more subsidies?
I think on every project that ESDC has ever been involved in, the developer always asks for more, and there's always a dialogue and there's always a negotiation. The level of state commitment has remained the same. It's $100 million.
Forest City does not expect to ask for more subsidy.
Okay. And I have another related affordable housing question. Does all of the affordable housing need to be built on site?
The affordable housing, and there's a minimum requirement of 2,250 units of affordable housing will all be on site. There are additional affordable housing home ownership requirements that are spelled out in the GPP and have been made available, but the 2,250 will all be on site.
Since the modified project plan of an arena and building is not what was originally agreed to in the EIS that was developed, why is there no supplemental EIS required?
The project that is the subject of the modified GPP is the project that was the subject of the EIS. There is an arena and 16 buildings and 8 acres of open space, new entrance to the transit. The project is the same.
Why has this project been exclusively awarded to Forest City Ratner? There are many other qualified builders and or partners that could have been part of this project area.
Well, Forest City had something that was rather unique that no other developer could bring to the table, and that was at the time that Forest City did come to ESDC in the city, they did have control of a significant portion of the site that they've been purchasing, and they also had ownership of an NBA franchise, which most developers don't have.
Why does the general project plan exclude costs for housing subsidies, the additional $105 million in New York City subsidies, and schools and sanitation and so on? Isn't this misleading?
It certainly wasn't intended to be misleading. I think there was always the expectation, and I think it's pretty clear that with affordable housing comes affordable housing subsidies.
We have had some criticism of the previous architectural design and an observation that Frank Gehry is no longer affiliated with the project. I think the gist of this question is why should the community put faith in the fact that something will be built that they find to be pleasing?
Well, first of all, as we mentioned before, there are design guidelines. So whatever is built is going to have to comport with the design guidelines. A lot of the attention has been with respect to the architect for the arena. Ellery Beckett is one of the most prominent firms in the country that builds arenas. So we're very confident that they're going to build a first-class arena that's going to look great. And they're working on that. But what we are relying on too is that the design guidelines will be satisfied.
We have a follow-up question to that. How much money did Forest City Ratner pay Frank Gehry, and whose pockets did that come out of?
I will say that there were no state funds that went into that, but if you want to.
That's why I'm not going to answer that.
Okay, they're not answering.
Ordinarily, when things go through a public process, as designs change, developers come back to us and present their revised plans. And I wonder whether we'll be able to see those revised plans in a forum that gives people an opportunity to provide some feedback as they evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just say, as we said before on the design, it's not looking to be evasive on that. It's that the design guidelines have been set. I think, as MaryAnne said, she expects to present that to us and to the city and to the public in the fall. So we will all see that. We will all be able to, reflect on that. But that's our expectation, and we're comfortable with that.
The question is, will there be any sort of public review process in which you...
It's had 5 years to review. Sure.
I'm sorry. Will there be some form of public review process as to the architectural design as it unfolds, in which you listen to the communities, particularly the surrounding communities, as to how the particular designs of the exteriors of the building will be presented?
We do not expect a formal review process by the public. We expect to see the renderings for Forest City Ratner. We expect ourselves, the city, to weigh in on those to some degree, but we do not expect a formal presentation to the public to accept comments on that the way we are accepting comments on
our modified GPP and the GPP that came before it.
Why was this project not allowed to go through the normal city planning process, including ULURP, which allows public genuine input? And before I ask them to address that, I'll just remind everyone that in September 2004, all 3 community boards did adopt resolutions supporting this project go through the city's ULURP process, recognizing the value that it has. That being said, I'll ask ESDC to comment on that.
I mean, when UDC was created many years ago, one of the reasons it was created was to help get big, complicated, broad projects developed in a quick fashion. We have, I know many folks in the local communities are comfortable with ULURP. We have an alternative review procedure. It's something we've used to great success on many other projects. It's something we do with the consent of the city. And in this case, the city did approve of the project under the UDC Act. I mean, we have been working collaboratively with the city from the very beginning of this project. The mayor's office has certainly consented to the project. The planning folks at the city have been involved in the design guidelines of this project to a very great degree.
As was mentioned before, this project did benefit from zoning overrides, and although we did create the design guidelines with substantial input from city planning, I think people just also have to understand that this was not subject to New York City zoning. This project had a general project plan, a land use plan that was developed per the UDC process.
We've had a few questions here about the status of the pending lawsuits. So can somebody speak as to what the status is?
I'm not sure I'm comfortable speaking about the status of litigation.
Let's start with a follow-up from Richard.
Without judging the merits, could you tell us procedurally which cases, how many cases, and at what stage of court they're at, and when they're next up for whatever procedurally is supposed to happen next, whether it's a motion that's pending, or an appeal, or a decision to hear an appeal, or as friendly as possible to lay people?
Well, I think as reflected by at least one of the earlier questions, I mean, the people in the room are well familiar with the status of litigation. There's the Court of Appeals will be hearing the New York Court of Appeals will be hearing the eminent domain case on October 14th. There was a lawsuit challenging the environmental review. That was decided in our favor. The appellate division denied leave to appeal. I suppose there are folks in this room who maybe could tell us what you plan to do next.
You don't have to have time to hear what we're going to do next.
Please continue.
That's the extent of the pending litigation.
Very good.
Our goal is to have this project completed by 2019.
With thousands of empty luxury condos, why would we need an additional 1,900 and 2,800 high rentals? I guess this is speaking to the market need.
Does regular checks of whether or not these mitigation measures are being implemented.
Okay, we actually have a question for the community board chairs. And I'll summarize it. What are you, the chairs of community boards 2, 6, and 8, doing to stop the plan and study the community's unity plan? Who wants to take a crack at that?
When Community Board 6 took up this matter in 2006, Community Board 6 voted against the project. By a vote, I believe, of 35 to 4 on one of the motions, 37 to 2 on another motion. As has been explained tonight, there's no formal role for the community boards in the process that the state is using for this project. And we're waiting to hear what's going to happen at the moment.
As Richard indicated, the community boards do not have a formal role because this was designated as a state project. As was indicated earlier, the community boards definitely did submit our desire to have this project go through ULURP, as most projects do in the city of New York, so that we could have a formal and official ruling and information that we feel the community boards should be contributing to this particular project. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We did not have a formal role, and for Community Board 2, that basically spelled that we would not have a formal comment about the project itself. We did react very strenuously to the EIS. We had lots of issues and concerns in that particular document that we responded to, but we did not react specifically to whether the project was or was not appropriate or doable or the like.
I would just like to comment that I am a little disappointed that even though the project plan was changed, that there was not a new environmental impact statement. So at this point, we have as much to go on as you do.
Thank you.
We need the job. We need to start working.
Yeah, we need to start working.
How?
Same old question, same old question, same old question. When is it going to change? When are you going to start doing something so people can get some work?
Sir, this is really unacceptable. You can't. Okay. I'm not going to engage him.
Every time, the same stuff.
You're taking time away from everyone else. Thank you.
Taking time, you're taking time, they're taking time, and doing nothing.
How much?
Moving up the process and then asking, why is it taking so long? Is it going to be finished before the World Trade Center? It would have been finished already.
How much has Forest City Ratner provided to any and all of its CBA partners?
I don't have those numbers available.
Can you estimate, ballpark? Give us something.
Forest City has funding obligations and commitments to each of the organizations, and they're reviewed on an annual basis. And we're happy to provide an accounting generally of that, but I don't have that information with me.
There's a reference here to a New York City Independent Budget Office report, which actually found that the arena would be a net money loser. Does Forest City or Empire State Development Corporation care to comment on that?
We have heard that report. We do our own analysis, and we basically do an analysis of the entire project. We don't do a separate analysis just of the arena component. What we bargained for was the entire project. We bargained for the benefits generated from the entire project. Our calculations, determined that there would be significant benefit to both the city and the state from the build-out of the project. I believe the city, through the mayor's office and EDC, also reached a similar conclusion.
The Forest City Ratner representative said earlier that the renderings were only a placeholder, so why were they also published in the ESDC documents?
So again, we were about designing the building from the inside out, and because there were meetings being held about the project and the arena design, we were asked to provide illustrative examples of the building. And again, not fully designed and not representative of what ultimately we will present to the public.
What is the plan and process for ensuring that the jobs created will be made available to local residents first?
Follow-up question.
Still make more than you guys do if you weren't up there.
When Community Board 6 approved the IKEA project, one of the things that the IKEA folks did was they opened an office in advance for helping people to get acquainted with what the job requirements were, get them ready to make the applications, and they gave early application preference, or started to receive applications first from local residents. And I wonder if you guys have considered, or if you haven't, it's not relevant to the project plan or anything, whether you would consider such a thing when the time comes around to be doing the hiring, both for the construction and the actual employment at the arena and so forth.
Again, we have 8 community-based organizations in the CBA, and between...
I live in Brooklyn for 45 years.
Go on, please. Okay, folks. Before we have to declare the meeting adjourned, excuse me, folks, look, we're all here for different reasons, but the one common element that we have is that we'd like to hear what City Ratner and ESDC have to say. Let's give them a chance to answer the questions. Go on, please.
Again, I was saying that there are 8...
Go on. What conditions must be met before B1, building B1, and the new urban room is built? And isn't it true that you won't build it unless you have an anchor tenant?
Because it is an office building, the way office buildings are built, ground up, are that they require a certain level of pre-leasing so that they can be financed. And so that building will be built when we can secure the financing, and therefore when we have enough pre-leasing so that the financing can be secured. So yes, indeed, it's an office building. It requires pre-leasing in order for it to get financed.
The creation costs for newly created jobs in affordable housing are 2 to 4 times higher than New York City's average. How does ESDC and FCR justify spending public money this way?
Stupid questions.
That's ridiculous, man.
You know, I'm not sure what that question is premised on, so, I mean, what we do is on a project-by-project basis, we evaluate the investment that the state is making and the public sector is making. We look at the potential benefits that we expect to be generated from the project, and then we make an evaluation as to whether or not the project is worthwhile or not. And that's basically what we did in this project. I don't know how it compares to other projects.
Well, why don't you get some of us from the community? We'll tell you no.
Come into the community and build what they want to
They
build.
build it out of town, and illegals, and they take all the state tax money that the people are working.
If the timetable for the entire project is really 10 years, why does it require 12 years of funding agreement to build phase 1 and 25 years to build phase 2?
Sure. I think there's been a lot of confusion about this. There is the timetable that all the collective parties are striving to achieve, which is the 10-year timetable. However, there are no guarantees. There are always the possibility of...
Excuse me. Excuse me. We'd like to hear what their answer is. Please proceed.
I know, you're civilized.
Y'all
started that.
Public should mind your own business. Let them build the thing. We need jobs.
You're not helping, sir. You're not helping. Please proceed.
You're actually stupid.
Please proceed.
Come on, folks. How much you getting paid to ask stupid questions?
Thank you.
He's paying these people to ask stupid questions.
Okay. Can we go on? Can we go on?
Go on, man. Listen to stupid questions.
Okay. Here's a yes or no follow-up question to one that was asked before. The Independent Budget Office report for the arena is City Ratner or ESDC disputing the contention that it is a net money loser for the city and state.
We have not looked closely at that report. We have looked at the report. We do our own number crunching, and we look at the project as a whole as opposed to the arena specifically.
My friend, you have to stop. I've asked you a number of times. Excuse me, sir. I've asked you to stop a couple of times also. Now, this is disrespectful. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen. As far as I can tell, you're both supporters of the project, and you're being incredibly disrespectful to our speakers here. Excuse me, sir. Either please stop talking or leave the room. Please stop talking or leave the room.
Nothing is happening to the neighborhood.
We'll wait for you. Please stop talking or leave the room. Please stop talking or leave the room. Okay. Threatening me personally is not helping you. I'm going to wait until everyone's quiet. It is disrespectful to the representatives of Forest City Ratner and Empire State Development Corporation. And most importantly, it's disrespectful to your fellow citizens who are here. We are not going to let you disrupt this meeting. There are questions to be asked. There are answers to be given. Your time is to stop talking or leave now.
Listen, folks, listen. We're not gonna get anywhere. And if you're tired of listening to the same questions over and over again, you can leave the room. Folks, if you're tired of listening to the same questions over and over again, you can leave the room. Write a question down.
How much money you make? You want to stop everybody from working? No, I don't write anything. He understands what I'm saying.
Folks, shall we proceed? Guys, you're not helping yourself. And you're not helping yourself.
And your neighborhood, my neighborhood too. Yes. My neighborhood too. Queens is built to respect these people. Brooklyn is built. Why you can't respect these people? Downtown, Market Street. Why are we just not like with you? We have nothing in our neighborhood. Because these people here. Your neighborhood, my neighborhood too. Our neighborhood too. Wait a minute. What about what do we call? You're not doing it right.
Guys.
You got to give them respect. Give them respect.
Thank you.
Every other neighborhood is built except our neighborhood because these people, they just came. Now, if I did that, you have me put out. Don't do this. If I did that, you have me put out. If I did that, you put me out. Like you told me before. You told me you put me out. You let them do what he wanted to do.
Folks, nobody gets to do what they want to do, and if you want to keep dragging this out, then we'll just go home now. Almost done.
Okay, let's try this again. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. Let's see if everyone can calm down a little bit. Let's see if we can calm down.
We passed them up to you. We passed our questions up. Read them.
There is no way.
No, that's all.
I'm not addressing.
Hey, you want to switch places? We should
No,
be,
you don't have the guts.
we should be thankful to these people came to the neighborhood to do something.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to leave. I'm going to ask you to leave. I'm going to ask you to either be quiet or to leave. Yes.
He's right. I lived in that project my whole life.
No, not you.
55 years old, I walked there. Nothing, nothing. See nothing.
Anthony, you're a community board member. Don't contribute to this. You know better.
Is there any possible reason for you continuing to talk, my friend, in the middle of a public meeting?
There are, you know, the delays that you're experiencing are the fact that most of these questions have become repetitive at this point. They are, I'm doing the best to screen them. We are doing our best. We want to try to get to the substance of any new questions that might exist because we don't want to leave any stones unturned. So please bear with us.
This is the first residential building, and it's 34 stories. And again, all of the buildings surrounding the arena are generally in that range. Let me just give you heights, because I have them. The first building is 620 feet in height. I'm sorry, that's the office building. But the first residential building is 322 feet.
What's your numbers from 3 years ago?
Building 2, which is the first residential building, is 322 feet. Building 3, which is the second residential building, is 428. And Building 4, which is the third residential building, is 511 feet.
Downtown Brooklyn Neighborhood Alliance. Thank you very much. Our responsibility to be the lead organization on the arena. All that happens within the arena, 30% of all the concessions will be minority women, 10 events a year. All the profits go into the community. 100 tickets for all the events. A community foundation. We also are the lead organization in terms of a state-of-the-art health facility. We've already been working with the hospitals and doctors in the area. As you know, this area come close to being one of the worst in terms of infant mortality rate. So we're very much concerned of the health of the community. In addition to that, we're the lead organization on the intergenerational complex, which will involve youth, daycare, children, senior citizen. It's a creative way. We've also looked at the design and have been invited to participate on how the complex will be designed in this process. That's the downtown Brooklyn neighborhood. Listen, please, now, I respect you. I'm finished. All right. So, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. So that is the completion of our involvement in the project. We support the project 100%, and I raised the question, is there any other developer who has sat down with the community and worked out a community benefit?
Thank you.
Mr. Caldwell? Mr. Caldwell's here from Brooklyn United.
Let's let City Ratner's team answer the question.
My name is James Caldwell, and I'm not ashamed to say that City Ratner has given our organization money. I'm not ashamed. We're a 501c3. We do things according to the IRS. Everything we get, we report it as a public record. You can go there and check it out. But more important here is that in our community, and I have lived in the community for over 40 years. You know, my mother migrated here. She came here. But what's more important here, what's more important here is that you need to come to our office. You just need to come to our office at 45. No. Okay, all right, well, you have that right. All right, okay, you have that right. At 45 Hudson Avenue.
Answer some questions and cut the PR.
Okay, so. We're not gonna speak about no bullshit then, all right? We're gonna be straight with you, straight up with you, all right? Straight up. The fact of the matter is, in the community that you just came to, that we've been here for years, all right? I'm not talking to you all. Brooklyn United for Innovative Development. All I'm asking you to do, just like I've asked Norman Oda, to come to our office and see the people that come there looking for jobs. City Ratner has worked with our organization to help people get hired from our community. Maybe you don't want to hear it. Maybe you don't want to hear it. I still haven't told you. Maybe you don't want to hear it. But black folks are not working in our community. And when they're not working, what happens? They need, I gotta finish because I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it. They need to work in our community. Thanks to City Ratner and ES and Empire State. No, I'm gonna give it up. All right.
Okay, folks. The question, to remind you what the question was, we had asked for the list of the CBA organizations and what their interests were. I think City Ratner should probably contain the answer to the best that they can do. So let's continue with the response to that question.
Organizations with a focus on children's development, health, and education.
Thank you. Okay, folks. It's been a long night. I have a feeling we're nearly there. Can Forest City tell us who all of the architects are that are either now or intended to be associated with the project? You're not helping. We'll wait. Okay. Has Forest City Ratner and/or Empire State Development Corporation reviewed the community's unity plan, and do you have any thoughts to share on that?
The EIS did look at alternatives to the proposed action and something that very closely resembled the unity plan, since the unity plan in its in the form that it was submitted. I don't recall the reasons why there were things that didn't conform to the comparison. So we did the best we could to generalize the unity plan, and it was assessed as an alternative.
Why provide parking for construction workers and guests to events at the arena if you want to discourage additional auto traffic? It's been reported that Ratner may be selling their shares of the Knicks to Vinny Viola. Is that true? Nets. Did I say Knicks? I meant Nets. I'm not a basketball fan, forgive me. Who is the individual at ESDC that has the primary responsibility for Atlantic Yards?
There are different individuals that have different responsibilities. Rachel is involved in all the planning aspects. Joe, to my left, is involved in coordinating our litigation, condemnation piece. I'm more involved in the real estate transaction. We have other folks that are not here that do the economic analysis, that crunch the numbers, and the design and construction department. And of course, Forrest Taylor is our ombudsman, our person that's out on the site most regularly.
Sitting right here, our good friend Forrest. So, apparently, and I'm not going to judge this, you can correct it if the statement is wrong, ESDC had committed in 2007 to regular meetings with local elected officials, city agencies, and community groups. Why hasn't this happened? Let's not go. Hey, buddy, let's not go there again, okay? Will there be a hearing on the arena bonds?
How are they going to make something that is not nice? How are they going to make money?
I want to hear the answer to this one. Let's go. We're almost there.
The question was whether or not there will be a hearing on the arena bond financing. There will not be a hearing on the arena bond financing. There's only one remaining hearing that ESDC is planning. That is the hearing next week.
The guy had a beautiful building before, glass.
Okay, I'm told these are the last two questions. So let's. Hey, buddy. Excuse me. Yo, let's get through these last two questions, then you can take your comments out into the street. Specifically, what compensation will be offered displaced tenants who do not want to move into the project after they have been forced from their homes? On a fixed income, these people do not have other living / options. How much money will FCR compensate such tenants?
The relocation assistance program is spelled out in considerable detail in the project plan, which is available on the website. The URL was provided to you earlier. I think the best way is for you to access that document, and it's quite easy to read, and the relocation portion is only a couple pages. It should answer all your questions.
Okay, last question, folks. When will the revised project go back to the Public Authorities Control Board? If it wasn't, how would that be avoided? If it won't, how will that be avoided?
The Public Authorities Control Board approved the project, and more importantly, the financing being provided by the state and the ESDC in 2006. That hasn't changed. So there is no further PACB approval that is required.
Okay, so at this time, I would like to thank all of the representatives from the state and from Forest City Ratner, but most especially those of you who actually stuck it out to the end tonight. Please stay tuned, and please show up at the public hearing next week. You will have your chance to have the floor for as long as the state will give it to you.